What's up, everyone, and welcome to Monday's edition of Reptile News. Now, I know I really didn't post anything last week, but I just really took the week off, and anyway, we will forego all of that other stuff. Let me be unprepared while I turn. Good gracious, let's turn that off. That is no good right there. That is not really good either. But anyway, so yeah, we'll forego all that. So I just want to bring up at the beginning of this show that if you guys have any news stories that you want to see me cover, then hit me up on Twitter at Reptile411, and we still have the Patreon. So if anybody's interested in contributing that way, you can check out the links right down in the description below. So let's get started with our first story. The first story I saw on Reddit, and it wasn't really a story, but it was a piece of information that was really, really interesting. And this person said, do not take pictures of your snake or video your snakes when they're eating. And I guess the problem is this person did this, and now every time they take their camera out or whatever to snap a picture of their snake, it gets in that poised position to strike. And what's really interesting to me about all this is I'll share a story, and I know I've shared this story before. It really, in my experience, in my lifetime, it relates to a lot. So 300 years ago, we'll just say that, I had a wild-caught California king snake. That was my very first dive into the reptile community, if you will. I had the snake for some time, and due to a lie and an inaccurate accusation that I scared somebody with it, my father made me let it go. Not that big of a deal because it was wild-caught, like right down the road, and it was let go where it was caught, so not a big deal. But anyway, after that, my second one, which came very shortly after that, after it was learned that wasn't true, was a Burmese python. Now, when you are, I'm going to throw this out there, when you're 14, 15 years old, a Burmese, going from a wild-caught 24-inch long California king snake to a baby, maybe 18-inch long if I remember right, Burmese python, huge jump. Don't recommend it for anybody. If you want to get into large constrictors, work your way up. Trust me. You can go, I mean, and even pythons, it's really, I mean, I know we're getting off topic here, but I mean, you can go, what I would recommend, I always recommend corn snakes because they're just great. They're easy to care for. They're easy to deal with. They're inexpensive to care for. I always recommend starting with a corn snake, or maybe even a king snake, but a corn snake. I would say move into like a ball python or something, and you could slowly go up from there if you want to really get into the big constrictors, maybe a Colombian boa. But going from a small colubrid like that to a large constrictor was a big jump that I don't recommend for anybody, but I did it nonetheless. Now, trying to get back on point here, when I bought the thing, I purchased it directly from the breeder. And the breeder said the one thing is don't ever feed it in the cage, because if you feed it in the cage, and every time you open the cage, it's going to associate you opening and reaching your hand in as food, and you're going to have issues with it. Now, I didn't listen to that breeder because I'd had a wild-caught California king snake for a few months, and that means I was a professional, right? No, far from it. I paid the price when I received a pretty nasty bite from said Burmese python, one of two I experienced while caring for it. And I probably, actually, to jump all the way to the end of the story here, I know it's all over the place today and I apologize, but I actually, after I received the second bite from the snake, I realized at this point in time, this snake outweighed me. I was like 40 pounds soaking wet when I was 15. This snake was almost 11 feet long, and I realized that, which I don't believe many 14, 15-year-olds do, I realized that I was in over my head. And I ended up donating the snake actually to the San Francisco Zoo to be put on exhibit for the rest of her life, which I'm pretty proud of and thankful for and everything. I mean, they were able to get something that's going to be used to educate people, and I got rid of a very, very bad decision. But I always thought, I always found it curious about what you do during feeding time and how the animal associates that with feeding time. And it just brought back that story with not feeding in the cage. The instructions on the breeder were to, one way or another, remove the snake from a cage, put it in a box or another enclosure or something when you feed it, which after the first bite I received, I had done that from that day on, and it was an issue. But anyway, it's a very interesting topic. I'm sure many of you can sound off with some very long-winded experience down in the comments down below. So let me know what you think of that, or have you found anything like that to be true, that what happens during feeding normally gets associated with feeding time for your snakes? Leave a comment down below and let me know, and let's move on. And now we're going to go to a source that I really don't ever talk about or report on, and that's Reptiles magazine, because they do an excellent job. They do a much better job at reporting than I do, and everybody already knows about Reptiles magazine, so I really don't ever delve into anything. But I saw an article pop up that says that the studies find microplastics in all 7 marine turtle species, which I just had to read and thought about maybe talking about here. And it goes far deeper than this article is dated, by the way, December 14th, 2018, so it's a couple days old. I'm sure some of you have seen it. It's been shared. I got it on the screen behind you guys. It's been shared a few times already, but it goes into a topic that's so much deeper than just microplastics and marine turtles. But it's a topic on our whole, and this is another one I hope people sound off on in the comments down below, because it's an interesting topic that I think needs to be discussed. I think it needs to be ingrained into our children's upbringing, because it's going to be their problem very, very soon, probably sooner than later, because God knows we're not dealing with it. And that's my whole issue, is we always hear these doom and gloom stories about, the turtles. We had recently talked about the brown tree snakes in Guam. What else? It seems like we're always talking about something that's derogatory towards the environment that humans have caused, mostly, or in part we've had something to do with. And there's never really any news that comes up about major things that are being done to fix the problem. And what I mean by major is, like, for example, we had spoke about it again recently about tunnels being put under roadways for turtles and frogs and other animals that cross over highways that have really high mortality rates in those areas during their migration periods and everything. And so I mean, it's great that they're doing that, but the only animals that are going to be saved are the ones that are finding the tunnels, or the ones that are lucky enough to get across without getting run over. So in my unprofessional, uneducated, mind you, opinion, we're not doing nearly enough. And if we keep going the route we're going, we might put a very, very small band-aid on what our species is doing to this planet, but ultimately we're going to continue destroying it, which is why I feel that it's so, so important to, I want to say beat into our children, but I don't mean that at all. Please don't beat your kids, because it doesn't work. It doesn't work. So it's just important to educate them about the importance of I don't even know. I mean, if I knew the proper things to do or even say, it's stuff I'm sure we'd be doing or saying. But I think you get my drift of where this is going. And again, I think this is something very important to have a discussion about in the comments, because after all, I'm only a person talking to the camera. The real work goes on down there in the comments, so leave yours and let me know what you think. And now we're going to move on to the worldwide phenomena that is social media and the stupid things that it makes people do. Well, social media and money, where an Instagram star, Stephanie Scalaro, I'm sorry, I don't know who that is, and as a matter of fact, I went to Instagram to look up her account and I didn't find it, so I'm just guessing that the account was probably deleted after this news came out. But apparently she has been arrested for selling endangered python skin garments, hats, handbags, stuff like that from Indonesia. Now, I don't want to get a whole bunch into details on this story. I mean, there's not really details other than a scumbag did something scummy. In total, there were 35 illegal skins that were imported, estimated at 70,000 euro, I believe it is, because it's over in the UK. And these offenses over there obviously are looked at pretty strictly and carry up to a 7-year prison sentence. So, I guess it's unfortunate that it happened, but it's good it got caught, and it's good it got publicized to hopefully avoid it from happening in the future, which kind of brings us back to the last story we just talked about. We're not teaching our children to not do this stuff, so that's terrible. But anyway, that, my friends, is going to be all your news for this Monday. If you'd like to read any more about these stories, those links are right down below here in the description. And as always, I'm not done yet. I wanted to talk about something real quick at the end of this video. You'll notice that we talked about the background and everything when I was doing it in the studio there, and now I'm back in here and everything. So I want to get a little bit and not too much into it, because we're like way far into doing this right now, and most people probably aren't watching anymore. But I'm having a major issue which I can only narrow down to my editing software. And when I film on the green screen and I use the chroma keyer in the software, it just shits itself. It just, the CPU goes up to 100% and it renders the software useless. So I've gone through everything I can. It's not my computer. It's got to be something to do with an update. That there's been numerous ones recently to the software. So I am in communication with the software developers trying to get this fixed, because I really like the green screen. It's kind of a drag. It's kind of a pain in the butt to manage. But at the same time, doing it right now with these problems is it's just unjustifiable. It can't happen, because I'll give you a good example. It turns like a 30 to 60, we'll say 60-minute render into about 4 hours. And because I work full-time, because I have a full-time family, got a home to take care of, and just do this for fun for free on the side, I just can't have that. So hopefully that gets fixed soon. And that, my friends, is going to be all your news for this Monday. If you'd like to read any more about these stories, those links are right down below here in the description. And as always, if you're still watching, my name is Jason White. Now you know what's going on in the reptile world, in the green screen world.